Hello, everyone, and welcome to Midlands Gives Communications and Social Media. I'm Lee Goebel, Communications Specialist at Central Carolina Community Foundation, and I'm going to walk you through building a communications plan for your giving day. First, we'll start off with a little bit about who I am. 4 quick bullet points. I'm a dog dad. I've got a 6-year-old dog named Toby. We enjoy camping and hiking together. I've graduated from the University of South Carolina twice now, once with my undergrad degree, once with a graduate degree in communication management. And then to my godchild, Sophia, I'm Uncle Lee. So those are 4 quick bullet points about who I am. Today, we're going to talk about building a communications plan. Now, the first half of this presentation is really transferable to almost all of your work in communications at your organization. You should be able to take everything we talk about in the first half of this presentation and use it in multiple areas of your organization when you're planning communications campaigns. The first part of your planning starts with the objective. So in my mind, I like to think about it like a road trip. If I want to go to Houston, Texas to visit my family, that's my destination. That's where I want to be. So when I'm making my plan, I have to start with that. I have to know where I want to go. That's what your objective is. Your objective is basically the goal the communication about the issue will accomplish. And it should describe a change in attitude, emotions, or behavior that you want your audience to have. Your objective should also be SMART, and I'm sure you've heard this. So they should be SMART objectives: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive or time bound, you may hear. When we think about strategy, the strategy is how you get there. So if I want to get to Houston, Texas on my road trip, my strategy is when I sit down and I look at a map, not my GPS, pretend like I don't have a GPS, I pull out a map and I find the route that I want to take to get to Houston, Texas. That's my strategy on the road trip. Strategy is the process of ordered thinking. And it's the way that we are going to achieve that objective. Our audience comes next. When we think about the audience, that is our target group. It's a very targeted group. It's not a shotgun approach. It's never the general public. It's a targeted group that you want the communications to reach. When you're thinking about your audience, you really need to bring them to life. You need to think about who are they? Where are they? Who or what may influence them? How do they see themselves in your work? Next, after audiences, we think about the messages we want those audience members to hear. It's critical thoughts, the critical thoughts that we really want the audience to internalize when they hear them. When you're building out your messages, you don't want any more than 3. That's usually a good rule of thumb in most cases in life. But when you're building communications plans, no more than 3. About 3 points you always want to hit. And when you're thinking about your messaging, you always want to think about what's in it for the audience. What is in it for them? Next in the plan, we have our tactics. The tactics are really the tools that you're going to use to convey those messages. So a lot of times it can be thought of as the peso model, which you may be familiar with. You've got paid media, earned media, shared media, and owned media. If the strategy is the route to get to the destination, the tactics are the tools you're going to use to get there. And when you're working with your tactics, when you're building out your tactics, whether that's a press release or a website banner or maybe a paid ad or some shared content on social media, you want to build out a calendar for when these things are going to happen. So if you're going to mail a postcard, for instance, if you want that postcard to be mailed on the 3rd week of April for Midlands Gives Day in 2 weeks, then you're going to want to build out your calendar to say, well, you need to have the design done by this time. You need to have the mailing list pulled by this date, and then the date that you want it in the mailbox. So when we say create a timeline, that's what we mean as far as building out your tactics timeline. And then, of course, the most important part is the evaluation component, especially in a campaign that you know you're going to do year after year. Midlands Gives Day, we're going into the 10th year now. So after Midlands Gives Day, you're going to sit down and you're going to look back at that objective that you made for this plan. And number one, did you meet that objective? And then think about what went well in the campaign. Where were the really smooth spots that worked out well? What went wrong in the campaign? What were the road bumps in getting to the objective? And then you think about what were the intended results and maybe what were the unintended consequences of some of the things you did, so that when you plan this for next year, you can work to have more intended results and fewer unintended consequences. So that's really what the evaluation is all about. It's all about how can you do it better next time. So an example for us, Midlands Gives 2023 plan. Our objective is to increase the amount of money raised and the number of donors during Midlands Gives 2023 by 5%. The strategy, the how we're going to get there, is to expand the Midlands Gives donor base, both geographically and demographically, by leveraging the foundation's owned and shared media and maximizing earned and paid media potential. So if you'll notice, our objective was kind of that overarching, this is where we want to be. We want to increase the money raised, but also the number of donors by 5% this year. How do you do that? Well, first, you need to look at, if you want more donors, you have to attract people from different demographics and maybe different geographies. And how will we do that? We're going to leverage our owned and shared media and maximize our earned and paid media potential. We look at our audience. So our targeted audience, residents of our 11 county service area, people right here in the Midlands, who are 22 to 70 years old and have the means to give. That's a very important part. You're not just targeting anyone, you're targeting people who have the means to give. And based on our research and our average donor, we usually see people start to give around the age of 22 and then up to the age of 70. That's where the core donor base is. So we're targeting those individuals to get more funds. The key messages, again, no more than 3. Number one, you can make an impact in your community by supporting local nonprofits. For $10, you can be a philanthropist. And then the third, giving is easy. It's just like online shopping at www.midlandsgives.org. You'll notice none of the key messages were taglines. Taglines are something totally different than the message. The message is what, again, we want that audience to internalize when they see communications about Midlands Gives Day. So we want them to know that they can make an impact in their local community by supporting local nonprofits. We want them to know that they don't have to be Warren Buffett to be a philanthropist. You know, that's bringing Midlands Gives Day back to its core of teaching everyone that you can be a philanthropist, the everyday philanthropist. And then the third is that giving is really easy. It's really easy to give that $10. It's just like online shopping at www.midlandsgives.org. Our tactics. Number one, we'll have direct mail. So we send a postcard every year to people who have donated a certain amount of money and more the previous year during Midlands Gives. So they will get a postcard this year. We're going to leverage our social media, our shared media, and use it to drum up engagement for that day and direct people over to the Midlands Gives website. We will use our email newsletters. If you have email newsletters, I encourage you to use them as well. Those are direct communications to your donor base. Public and media relations, the nice part for you, you don't have to worry about this for Midlands Gives Day. The Community Foundation, we will handle all public relations, all media relations, in the days leading up to Midlands Gives Day and on the day of. So there's a media interest form that is live on the Midlands Gives site now until March 24th. You'll want that filled out by March 24th. And we'll use that media interest list to coordinate interviews with our local TV stations, radio stations, and our local publications. The Community Foundation also handles advertising for the day, but say for a different communications plan, advertising could be a tactic for you that you could either buy an ad in a paper, or maybe you work with a publication that wants to promote your work. You could maybe get an ad in kind from them to promote a campaign that you're running. But again, for Midlands Gives Day, we work with all the publications in our 11 county service area, and we handle advertising for the day, so you don't have to spend any money on it. And then for us, another tactic is our CCCF website. For Midlands Gives Day specifically, this, especially if you're a communications professional, everything you do should point back to your website. For the day of Midlands Gives Day, your website is your Midlands Gives profile, which is why it's very important that you go in there and you make sure by the end of March, especially, that it's updated and it's got fun pictures. It's got, ways to engage your audience and really inform them about the work that you do to make them feel something. And then I like to break up our tactics pre-event, so pre-Midlands Gives Day, day of Midlands Gives, and then the post-event communications, which is all your thank yous. That is a very important component. It's not just asking people to give, but when they do give, making sure you follow up and say thank you. And I'm sure you'll learn more about that in your donor relations training. When we think about resources this year on the Midlands Gives webpage, we have, or on the nonprofit webpage, on the Midlands Gives website, we have a whole resource hub for you. We've got a 10-week checklist, so you don't have to sit down and even write out your checklist of all the things you have to do. We've already done that for you. Go on there, take advantage of that. It's very easy. So it's midlandsgives.org. You log into your account, and then under For Nonprofits, you'll go to the resource hub and you'll find your 10-week checklist. You'll find the strategy builder to think about your audience, to think about the messages you want your audience to hear. It's all right there. You just have to fill in the blank. And then you'll also find the online toolkit with graphics and logos. And that also includes a postcard that you can put your logo on to send out to your donor base if you'd like to do a mailing. And that concludes our training for Midlands Gives communications and social media today. If you have any questions, feel free to email midlandsgives@yourfoundation.org. And of course, we want you to connect with us. So you'll look on the screen. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Engage with us so that we can engage with you. And let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.